Moonwalker. It's written in the stars.
Hey everybody, it's me, Brandy. Welcome back to my channel. So glad to put this content out for you guys this soon. I know that my last video might have been a little bit confusing and kind of off topic. I did want to touch on that subject about Quincy Jones and the event that's occurring in June. I don't know what it means or if there's anything to it, but of course I'd like to just keep you guys updated with things that I am finding out. I'm trying to get better with that. This new video is definitely a segue into the main topic of what I'm talking about. I did explain the CERN definition and the importance of that. It also relates very much to the subject, but this one is a little bit more, what is actually more Michael focused. So if you watch the beginning of the video, you saw the Moonwalker trailer, and, you know, basically not the entire thing, but just the very end part of it, where basically the guy says Moonwalker, it's written in the stars. There's a reason for that, and I'll get into that. So today's video is kind of, it might be a touchy subject to some people. I know a lot of people, you know, think they know everything about Michael. They consider themselves Jacksonologists, and they have this idea of him, and especially when it comes to religious and spiritual things. You know, we've all seen different sides of Michael. When it comes to that, he speaks often about God and the Bible, and that's really cool. And I admire that about him, and I think it has a lot to do with his purpose, his path in life. But something that people really don't seem to pay a lot of attention to, that I've noticed about Michael, is just, you know, the fixation on the stars and the moon, and, you know, just astrology in general. He seemed very interested in that. And, you know, astrology is very much in the Bible also. People have opinions on astrology and, you know, say, oh, it's wicked or it's of the devil or whatever. But, you know, it very much is in the Bible. It's mentioned a lot, especially the stars and the study of stars. So what I'm going to be doing today is reading. I did some research and I found out a lot of information about Michael's natal chart. So basically his natal chart is the chart that goes over his life path based on his birth date and the time of birth. There are death charts also, but I obviously, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to read that, at least not at this time. But I do think it's important to understand, just like I did the CERN explanation, it's very important to talk about Michael, his life path, his purpose. Michael has always been very spiritual, like I just mentioned. People might not see the importance of me talking about this stuff, you know, especially if you're a believer or you're a hoax person, you want to just kind of get to the clues. But I've been saying for years there was a big message to everything that Michael was talking about. And I think one of the biggest things about Michael is his path, his destiny. I think Michael obviously has been destined for great things and destined to reveal things to people. It was his path. He wouldn't have been given the talent he was given, or, you know, given this larger than life type thing, you know, existence, if it wasn't meant for him to express that to the masses however he could. So I do think that's a very big part of his journey, and I want to talk about that in terms of explaining his entire natal chart so that you guys can see full proof that this has always been his path. I am not by any, you know, means a reader. I don't read tarot. I don't really know how to read the charts. I just get this information from researching multiple different people who do read. I've read a couple of articles, a couple of different videos, so you guys can verify this information if you'd like to. But they all seem to be pretty consistent, so I've kind of all brought it together for this video. So let's get right into it. So Michael Jackson was born on August 29th, 1958 at 7:33 p.m. His general sign astrologically is a Virgo. So Michael was born on the 29th of the month, and you guys know how I feel about the 11s. 2 plus 9 is 11, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So what that means is 2 is ruled by a moon energy. This basically means that Michael had a small portion of Cancer traits. That's the astrological sign, Cancer. It just means the traits, though, This connected him to large feelings of emotion and also provided him with a deep spiritual tie to his mother. So that, relationship, however you want to call it, with Catherine, are not really the relationship that I have my own opinion about Michael's quote unquote relationship with his mother, but just his tie, his always singing her praises, his affinity for his mother. That definitely is a trait that comes from that. These traits also make him appear to be shy and sensitive to individuals that would meet him for the first time in person. So basically, that's just why he came off that way. So there's also a rising sign, which is called the ascending sign. That basically is a mask that a person wears to the public. So that for Michael is Pisces. This enhances his level of sensitivity and emotion. There was a shell that he would put on to the public before meeting people and getting to know who they really were. So this is kind of what he showed to people. Why people always say, oh gosh, Michael was so shy when I met him. He was so quiet when I met him. But people often say, like, after they know him for a while, he's not like that. He's more outgoing. He's more talkative. But that ascending sign of Pisces is why he was so, shy when he first met people. It was his shell that he wore, his mask that he wore for people. The moon is also ruled by Cancer, and basically Cancer is the crab in the shell. So that explains, like, it's not his actual sign, it's just his traits that he had from that moon. So that's why you have the crab in the shell. You have the person in the shell behind the mask, hiding who they really are until they get to know somebody. So he always had his walls up, before allowing people to see who he really was. So being shy and reserved is just a natural characteristic for people who have a moon that rule their first house. So this is just a natural characteristic that he had. Just not necessarily like the shyness. The shyness is more or less just how he portrayed himself to be. But just the wall up, the reserved nature, until we got to know someone, that's just how that it was, like, natural for him to be that way. So let's see here. So basically, something else that's interesting about the ascendant Pisces sign is that it also enhances Michael's intuition and abilities to see people's true narratives and motives. So basically, that allowed him to just see what people were really about. People might say, well, that doesn't make sense because he had so many shitty people in his life, or people who were in his life that were, not good for him. But I think with Michael, even if, like, I'm very similar in that way. Like, I might know that someone isn't necessarily a good person, but I give people the benefit of the doubt regardless. So I think with him, it was fair. I can't speak for him, but I think with him, it's something that's very similar. He gave people the benefit of the doubt, even though he knew they might have been not a good person or they had ulterior motives. I think when it came to children, it was often that situation. I think when it came to adults, he would just cut people off. When it came to children, like if you have like Gavin Orviso's mother, he might have had a feeling about how she was or who she really was. But I think he might have given her the benefit of the doubt because her child was sick. So that's kind of how I see it. Even though he had this intuition about people, he would often give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if it would benefit a child. So Michael's second house is ruled by Taurus. This house is about material possessions and things that we are going to own in this lifetime. The second house also shows our physical talents. In Michael's second house, we see Mars, which is the planet of physical action. This obviously is a direct reference to Michael's dancing. So in his second house, you see this. Mars basically represents if you are going to be in any kind of career path that's physical. So Michael would have also made a really good athlete as well. But of course, his physical fitness, his physical actions, his physical career was him dancing. It's interesting that Mars is the second house with Taurus. Overall, this means that Michael's acquired his physical possessions from the physical planet, which in case would be his dancing. So all of his, basically what this means is because the physical material possessions are in the same house as the physical career. This is why Michael's dancing, not necessarily just dancing, but dancing he was known mostly for his amazing dancing skills. So his dancing skills accompanied with his entertaining skills is what got him his mass fortune would have got him all of his money. So it's so crazy how this aligns like that, like how his chart is just amazing. It's just so accurate with him. So something that's very interesting, Michael has 5 planets in his 6th house. So Uranus, Venus, Mercury, Pluto, and the Sun. The 6th house is the house of work and service, and also is the house of Virgo characteristics. So the ability to analyze, criticize, and also become a perfectionist. The general sign of Virgo is perfectionism. Michael having Virgo in his 6th house is basically means he's a pure Virgo, even though he has other like traits. He like you can have a rising sun that's a different sign, or you could have you can be like an Aquarius with a different I don't know how to really put it, but Michael basically, even though he has certain characteristics of other zodiacs, he is a pure Virgo, like through and through Virgo, and perfection is like their thing. It's very important to them to have everything be perfect. They're very like it almost to a fault. It'll drive them crazy if they don't have everything orderly and perfect. So now the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio energy, and is an individual, and basically an individual's ability to look past the veil of this reality and also be able to pick up on the true intentions and motives of other individuals. Basically what this means is when it says look past the veil of this reality, this means, again, intuition and psychic ability. Now we have known, I previously have done in multiple videos, I've put up this picture that Michael drew on the set of The Wiz in like 1977 or 78. He drew this picture of this man, and fast forward to the set of This Is It. You see this man that looks exactly like this drawing. It's creepy, but Michael has done many things. He has stated before in multiple interviews that he has psychic abilities. He's able to see things. The bodyguards that wrote the book about him, there was a moment where he was freaked out about his kids being on a plane, or him taking a plane. I forget the story exactly, but they were on a plane. He was like, I don't want the kids on the plane. And he had a weird feeling about this plane. And then come to find out, like, there was something wrong with the planes. They didn't fly that day. Michael was very intuitive of things, and he was able to like pick up on things. This comes from that house of Scorpio. So the intuition, people again might say, well, if he was so intuitive, why did so many bad things happen to him? Well, it's because just because you have an intuition that something is bad or might not be good doesn't mean that you can see exactly what it is. You might not, it's just a feeling. You might not know what the doom is that's coming, but you feel that something's very wrong. And I think that was the case with him. So in his 8th house, there's also Jupiter, which means he had a magnetic aura that allowed him to acquire a large following of people all over the world. It's a never-ending expansion in God's fortune in this house. So in his 8th house, he has this magnetic aura based on his natal chart. Whoever this person was to be happens to be Michael Jackson, but this aura was magnetic for people to follow him, to adore him all across the world, to love him, be obsessed with him. It was just there. He had this magnetic pull that people often say they can't explain. They just have this, when they finally learn of him, they can't describe the feeling that they have towards him. Excuse me. So it's worth mentioning that also Tupac had the same placement of the Jupiter in his 8th house. So Tupac had this exact same placement, which is crazy, in his natal chart. And again, Tupac, very adored by the masses. People like loved him. The right people, very drawn to his ability to speak to people's hearts. And I don't know if you guys follow Tupac. I always did. Love his work. He's a little bit vulgar at times, but he spoke the truth, and then that was able to suck people in. Michael has the same thing. So this is where things get so freaking interesting to me. And you guys will know why in a second. So Michael had Saturn right in the middle of his MC, or midhaven. The midhaven holds the same energy as the 10th house, which represents what we are going to be remembered for in this lifetime. This is the area that was located in the middle of the horizon during the moment that Michael was born. On the horizon of Michael's birth, Saturn was right in the middle. Now, you guys know, this is like crazy because we all know about the Escape album cover, and it has Michael, and it definitely looks like Jupiter is around his head. Now, I will go into all of that later. I mean, that is so much content within itself that I'm going to discuss and talk about. But when I read that, it just like totally shocked me because I'm like, oh my God, like his life path is like Saturn. And I never knew that about him. I don't know. A lot of you guys are probably astrology, like you're into that stuff, so you know about this. I was very ignorant to it. I had no idea about it. And that is so crazy. Like, it's just insane. I just like got chills when I read that. I was like, I can't believe it. This is like his life pattern is like, is Saturn, and you have this. There's a lot of things with Saturn though, a lot of things. But like I said, I'll get to that later. This means that Michael was going to be remembered for perfecting his craft and for having so much discipline and order and structure to his craft. Saturn rules leaders and teachers. This means that Michael was destined to be a master of his craft. This is what he will always be remembered for. Because again, remember, the 10th house and Saturn is what you're always remembered for, no matter what. It's like what people always know about you, what they always think about. And that's crazy that's just insane to me. In order to see how wealthy someone is going to be, you have to look at their earth houses. This is Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. All of Michael's earth houses are completely filled, which is kind of unusual. So every single earth house that he has is completely filled. This means that he was absolutely destined for wealth and fame. Naturally intuitive and naturally disciplined, destined for wealth and fame. That was Michael's path. If Michael ever decided that he didn't want to have fame or success or any kind of fortune, it would never work because that was his destiny. His natal chart completely shows that everything that happened to Michael was his path. He sung about it, he talked about it, and I will get into that in other videos. Michael often talked about fate and his destiny, and I'm sure he probably studied his own natal chart to know about it or to understand what it was. But it's just crazy to actually see that, like, even if he said, I don't want to sing anymore, I don't want to, and I think this kind of falls in line to what's happening with Michael right now. And it's negative and it's bad, but it's like, even if you escape your death or you fake your death, you still have this destiny that you can't escape your destiny. You can't escape what's meant for you. If you're meant to be a voice, you have these forces that are coming against you and trying to destroy you and trying to like take you down. But that's because you have to fight. You have to fight for the truth. You can't hide from the truth. You can't hide from, if your destiny is to tell the masses about what's going on, you have to do that. And that's why you have these forces. People say, why are these things still happening? He's gone. Well, I think it's happening because he's not gone. And that just kind of dawned on me. Like, I think that these things are still coming against Michael because he's not, and maybe people might say, well, that's too much of a conspiracy. That's not true, But maybe it's time to start having that conversation and thinking about that. Maybe that's why these things continue to happen. When he ceases to live, maybe these things will stop, but he's still alive. And because he's still alive, there's still this path. There's still this, you have to fulfill your destiny. He talks about that in his songs a lot. Fulfilling a prophecy. He talks about that, and they don't care about us. I'll get into all that in other videos, but Michael talks about this often, fulfilling his prophecy, fulfilling his destiny. You can't escape that no matter what. That's what his life path is. So, again, even if he wanted to be away from it, he couldn't. So another side of this is that wherever Saturn is located is where you would have past life karma. Basically what that means, something that was an issue in your previous life and that's something that you didn't learn from. It carries over into this life and becomes restricted in this life. Okay, so that's the flip side. That's the flip side of this perfection that you have on this natal chart. You have all these things going right for you, but everything is not perfect in life. There's a yin and there's a yang. There's good and there's bad, no matter what. So then you have this this situation where everything's not perfect, right? And now you have the other side of Saturn. Okay? So the 10th house where Saturn is located rules our recognition and public recognition, as well as what we are going to be remembered for. However, it also rules something interesting. You guys are going to fall out when you hear this. The 10th house of Saturn also rules the relationship with our fathers. Okay? So wherever Saturn is located, that area of our life is going to be restricted as well. This could absolutely explain Michael's relationship with his father and bumpy history that he had with his dad. So again, Saturn, I told you, Saturn is about what people are going to remember you for. Okay, there's a good and there's a bad to everything. Yes, he's remembered for all of his accolades, but Michael's also remembered for his relationship that he had with his father, Joe. Okay, that's crazy that his natal, like his birth, the moment he was born falls directly in line with the relationship that you have with your father figure. That is crazy. So Joe is seen as Saturn. He's seen as a disciplinarian. This one, the one that brought structure and order to his kids and turned them into the celebrities that they ended up being. So I'm not going to get into the whole battle of good or bad. I mean, Joe, obviously, he's admitted his wrongs. Michael has spoken about his father's discipline. We all know what happened. But Michael seems to have forgiven his father. I don't want to get into that whole entire thing about, he abused him. At the end of the day, it was part of his life path. There's good and there's bad to everything. It can't always be perfect. And it seems that, a lot of Michael's issues most likely came from what happened with his father also. His need for perfection. It's like it came full circle. Now, this is past life karma. I don't know what happened in Michael's previous, if you believe in that thing, I don't know what happened in his previous life that would make it so that, he came back into, I don't really know how all that works. I'm not sure about that. It even carries over into his fatherhood, because now Michael, he has, if you believe that he's faked his death, well, he has these kids that he left. And people, he sees his kids. I don't know about all that. I really don't know if he sees his children, or if he doesn't, or he did, or he didn't. I don't really know what that level of anything is. I just know that it's just interesting that it all seems to come full circle, because, he has these kids and now they've been kind of scarred by what happened with him. So as far as like him not being there because he had to leave or whatever. So it's interesting, but we remember the whole Saturn thing. We remember the bold statement. Like, what does this mean? Why is it? People are looking at his lips saying, I'm alive, but I never thought that was important. I thought it was more or less about, why does he have this planetary thing going on in this picture? What does it mean? And I will get into that in future videos. But that's pretty much Michael's natal chart. Like I said, I didn't do his death chart. I don't really think it's necessary to talk about that. I believe Michael's alive. But even if I didn't think he was alive, I don't think it's important at this point in the game to talk about that. But if you did like this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so that you know when I upload my next video and you're getting them. I really appreciate you guys listening to me. It was kind of a rant. It's not too long. I am building up to what's good. I'm going to really get into content in the next video, but I did want to talk about his natal chart because I do think it's very important that we have that conversation. So again, thanks for listening. Again, subscribe, enable notifications, like, comments, give me your thoughts. I want to hear what your thoughts are about this. And I will talk to you guys very, very, very soon. Okay? Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.